The rain came down in sheets, turning the forest floor into a treacherous maze of mud and exposed roots. Sonia pressed her back against the rough bark of an ancient oak, one hand clutching her swollen belly, the other gripping a rusted knife she'd stolen 3 towns ago. Her wolf stirred restlessly beneath her skin, agitated by the pregnancy hormones and the constant state of flight that had become their existence. 9 months. 9 months since that night, the one that lived in her memory as fragmented images and sensations rather than coherent narrative. She remembered golden eyes that seemed to look straight through to her soul. She remembered the feeling of being cherished, of being claimed in a way that transcended the physical. She remembered pleasure so intense it had made her wolf howl with joy. But faces remained blurred, names forgotten, circumstances unclear. One moment she'd been running from the pack that had slaughtered her family, and the next she'd woken alone in an unfamiliar cabin, her body marked with bites and her wolf purring with satisfaction. Now she carried the consequence of that mysterious night. The abandoned cabin she'd been squatting in for the past 2 weeks appeared through the downpour, its sagging roof and broken windows offering minimal shelter but enough privacy to hide from the world. Sonia stumbled through the doorway, water streaming from her dark hair, her clothes soaked through and clinging to her distended belly. She'd stolen the oversized jacket from a clothesline in the last human town she'd passed through, knowing her rogue status made her unwelcome in any wolf pack territory. A sharp contraction seized her abdomen, stealing her breath and bringing her to her knees on the warped floorboards. Too soon. It was too soon. She had at least another week according to her calculations. But her wolf knew better, whimpering with a mixture of fear and anticipation as another contraction followed the first. Alone. She would do this alone, as she did everything now. Sonia dragged herself toward the corner where she'd made a nest of stolen blankets and pine boughs. Her hands shook as she lit the single candle she'd been saving for emergencies, its flickering flame casting dancing shadows on the water-stained walls. Outside, thunder rumbled across the sky, and she couldn't help thinking it sounded like a warning. The labor consumed her. Hours blurred together in a haze of pain and primal instinct, as her body worked to bring new life into a world that had shown her nothing but cruelty. She bit down on a leather strap to muffle her screams, terrified that any sound might draw unwanted attention. Rogues who heard a she-wolf giving birth might come to steal the pup, to sell it to the highest bidder. Pack wolves might come to enforce their territorial laws. And then there were the others, the ones she'd heard whispered about in the supernatural underground, the collectors who sought rare bloodlines and unusual abilities. When the pup finally emerged in a rush of fluid and relief, Sonia's first instinct was to curl around the tiny body protectively. Her hands moved on autopilot, clearing airways, severing the cord with her knife, wrapping the infant in the cleanest blanket she possessed. Only then, as dawnlight began filtering through the broken windows, did she get her first clear look at her child. The pup was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a shock of dark hair, and lungs that worked beautifully based on the strength of those first cries. But it was the eyes that made Sonia's blood run cold. They were black. Not the normal dark blue of newborn infants, but utterly, completely black, like polished obsidian or the depths of space itself. No white, no iris, just endless darkness that somehow caught and reflected the candlelight. Sonia's wolf retreated in her mind, not in rejection, but in stunned recognition of something ancient and powerful. Her hands trembled as she held her daughter closer, those impossible eyes staring up at her with an awareness that no newborn should possess. She'd heard the stories, of course. Every wolf had. The old bloodlines that carried gifts beyond normal shifter abilities, seers, healers, berserkers, and the rarest of all, the ones marked with eyes like midnight, who supposedly carried the power to change the fate of kingdoms. But those bloodlines were extinct, wiped out centuries ago in the Great Purges when the packs had unified under the first Alpha King. Or so everyone believed. A branch snapped outside, and Sonia's head whipped toward the door, Her wolf surged forward, protective instincts overwhelming her exhaustion. She couldn't fight, not in her current state, but she could run. She'd been running her whole life. The footsteps came closer, multiple pairs crunching through the wet undergrowth. Sonia forced herself to her feet, ignoring the way her body screamed in protest. She tucked her pup inside her jacket, feeling the small, warm body settle against her chest, and moved toward the back window she'd already identified as her emergency exit. Heard something from this direction. Could just be an animal, but a male voice, rough with authority. Check it anyway. Alpha wants this sector cleared before the gathering. Another voice, younger but no less dangerous. Rogues? No, these were pack wolves, probably patrolling the boundaries of the neutral territory that began just 2 miles north. If they found her here, they'd have every right to detain her, question her, and worst of all, they'd see her pup. Sonia climbed through the window with painful slowness, biting back a cry as her abused body protested every movement. The forest stretched before her, dense and dark despite the morning light, offering concealment if she could just reach the tree line. Her daughter stirred against her chest but didn't cry, as if the pup understood the need for silence. She ran, or rather, she stumbled and lurched and dragged herself forward with desperate determination, one hand supporting her pup and the other grasping at trees for balance. Behind her, she heard the patrol enter the cabin, heard their exclamations of surprise at finding signs of recent habitation. Blood here, fresh, and a birthing smell. Spread out, she can't have gone far. But Sonia had spent years perfecting the art of disappearing. She pushed through the pain, through the exhaustion, through the bone-deep weariness that threatened to drag her down. Her wolf lent what strength it could, still recovering from the shift of pregnancy and birth. They moved through the forest like ghosts, leaving minimal trace, using every trick she'd learned to mask her scent and obscure her trail. By the time the sun stood high overhead, she'd crossed into neutral territory proper. The invisible boundary tingled across her skin, old magic, treaty magic, the kind that prevented pack wolves from pursuing rogues beyond this point without cause. She collapsed against a moss-covered stone, her body finally giving out now that she'd reached relative safety. Her pup stirred and began to fuss, hungry cries that Sonia rushed to satisfy. As her daughter nursed, those black eyes stayed fixed on her face, and Sonia felt the weight of responsibility settle over her like a mantle. This child would be hunted. Those eyes marked her as something special, something powerful, something that others would want to control or destroy. "I'll keep you safe," Sonia whispered, stroking the soft dark hair. "I promise. No matter what it takes." The neutral territory sprawled before them, a patchwork of unclaimed land where rogues, outcasts, and those fleeing pack politics gathered. It wasn't home, but it was sanctuary of a sort, and for now, that would have to be enough. 3 weeks later, Sonia stood at the edge of the neutral territory marketplace, her pup secured against her chest in a sling fashioned from scavenged fabric. She'd learned quickly to keep the baby's eyes hidden, draping a thin cloth over the sling's opening to shield her daughter from casual observation. The marketplace buzzed with activity, rogues trading goods, refugees seeking news of their scattered families, merchants from human towns who either didn't know or didn't care about the supernatural community they served. Sonia's stomach cramped with hunger. The small amount of money she'd had was long gone, and her post-birth body demanded calories she couldn't provide. Her wolf grew weaker each day, unable to properly nourish both Sonia and the pup they'd produced. She needed food, needed supplies, needed help. But asking for help meant exposure, and exposure meant danger. She'd heard the whispers already, even in the 3 weeks they'd been hiding in the territory. Rumors of a rogue she-wolf with a special pup. Questions about unusual eyes. Strangers asking if anyone had seen a new mother traveling alone. Someone had talked or someone had guessed, and now the word was spreading through the supernatural underground like wildfire. "Fresh bread! Get your fresh bread here!" A vendor's call drew her attention, and her mouth watered at the yeasty smell wafting through the crowded square. Sonia drifted closer, eyeing the loaves with desperate hunger. Maybe she could steal one. She'd become quite good at thievery over the years. Her fingers itched toward the nearest loaf. A hand closed around her wrist. Sonia's wolf surged forward, ready to fight, but the grip was gentle despite its firmness. She looked up into the weathered face of an elderly she-wolf, whose eyes held more kindness than judgment. "Don't," the woman said quietly. "Marcus is a retired enforcer. He'll take your hand off if he catches you stealing." Tears pricked at Sonia's eyes. The damned pregnancy hormones still hadn't settled, and she tried to pull away, but the woman held firm. "Come with me. I have soup." Every instinct screamed not to trust anyone, but Sonia's body betrayed her, swaying with weakness. The woman caught her elbow and guided her away from the marketplace, through narrow alleys between ramshackle buildings, to a small dwelling that smelled like herbs and wood smoke. Inside, the woman ladled steaming soup into a wooden bowl and placed it in Sonia's shaking hands. "Eat, then we'll talk." The soup was thin but hot, and Sonia devoured it with embarrassing desperation. Her pup stirred against her chest, and before she could adjust the covering cloth, tiny sounds emerged, those distinctive cries that no amount of shielding could completely muffle. The woman's expression changed, eyes widening. "May I?" Sonia's arms tightened protectively around the sling, but something in the woman's face, a mixture of awe and recognition, made her hesitate. Slowly, carefully, she pulled back the cloth. Her daughter's black eyes stared up at them both, catching the firelight and reflecting it back like dark stars. The woman gasped, one hand flying to her mouth. "Blessed ancestors, the prophecy, it's true." "What prophecy?" Sonia demanded, her voice raw. "Everyone keeps mentioning prophecies and bloodlines, but no one will tell me what it means." The elderly she-wolf sank into a chair, still staring at the pup. Those eyes, I never thought I'd see them again in my lifetime. The last wolf born with eyes like that was Queen Marianne, mother of the current Alpha King. She died 20 years ago, but before her death, she spoke of a child who would be born bearing her gift, a child who would either unite or destroy all the packs. Sonia's blood turned to ice. "The Alpha King's mother? You need to leave this territory," the woman said urgently. "Today, now." Word has already spread, and there are those who would kill that pup to prevent the prophecy from being fulfilled. Others who would steal her to use her power for themselves. You can't. The door burst open, slamming against the wall with a crack that made both women jump. But it wasn't attackers who filled the doorway. It was power incarnate. The male who entered had to duck beneath the doorframe, his massive shoulders barely fitting through the opening. Everything about him screamed dominance, from his military-precise bearing to the way the very air seemed to bend around him. Golden eyes swept the room with predatory intelligence, and when they landed on Sonia, she felt the impact like a physical blow. Recognition slammed through her with the force of an avalanche. Fragmented memories suddenly cohered. Those eyes, that face, the feeling of being utterly consumed by someone's presence. Her wolf stirred from its exhausted stupor, suddenly alert and yearning toward this male with an intensity that terrified her. Him. It had been him that night, the father of her pup, but the male's attention had already moved past her to the bundle in her arms. He crossed the small space in 3 ground-eating strides, and Sonia found herself backing against the wall, clutching her daughter with desperate protectiveness. "Show me," he commanded, and his voice held the weight of absolute authority. Not a request, but an expectation of immediate obedience. "No." The word escaped before Sonia could think better of defying what was clearly an alpha. His golden eyes snapped back to her face, and she saw surprise flicker across his features. People obviously didn't refuse him often. The air grew heavy with his dominance, pressure building until Sonia's knees threatened to buckle, but she locked them and lifted her chin in defiance. The standoff lasted an eternity and a heartbeat. Then the male did something unexpected. He pulled back his aura, gentling his presence until Sonia could breathe again. "Please," he said, and the word sounded rusty, as if he rarely used it. "I need to see the pup's eyes." Something in his tone, a raw vulnerability beneath the command, made Sonia's resistance waver. Her arms loosened fractionally, enough that the cloth covering her daughter slipped. The Alpha King, because she knew now that's who he was, could feel it in the way power radiated from him like heat from the sun. Froze. All the color drained from his face as he stared down at the pup in Sonia's arms. His hand rose, trembling, reaching toward the infant before he caught himself and pulled back. "Impossible," he breathed. "Those eyes. My mother's eyes." The elderly she-wolf stepped back as the Alpha King continued to stare at Sonia's pup, his golden eyes reflecting something between wonder and grief. Sonia's arms tightened protectively around her daughter, every maternal instinct screaming at her to run, despite the weakness still plaguing her post-birth body. "My mother died 20 years ago," Ryder said quietly, his voice rough with emotion. "I watched the light leave her eyes, eyes exactly like those." His gaze lifted to Sonia's face, and she saw the exact moment calculation replaced shock. "You will come with me, both of you. Now." "No." The word came out steadier than Sonia felt. His jaw tightened, authority flooding back into his posture. "That wasn't a request. The pup is clearly connected to my bloodline." "She's my daughter," Sonia interrupted, backing toward the door. "And I don't take orders from anyone. Do you have any idea what will happen if the wrong wolves discover what she is?" Ryder moved to block her exit, his massive frame filling the doorway. "Every pack with political ambitions will come for her. Every wolf who fears the prophecy will try to kill her. You're weak, exhausted, and according to your scent, you haven't eaten properly in weeks. How exactly do you plan to protect her?" The truth of his words hit like physical blows, but Sonia lifted her chin defiantly. "I've kept her safe this long, by hiding in neutral territory with rogues who'd sell you both for a hot meal." His voice dropped, becoming almost gentle. "I'm offering you protection. My pack, my resources, your control," Sonia finished. "I've heard the stories about you, Alpha King. You don't make offers, you issue commands and expect obedience. Well, I'm not one of your pack wolves." Something flashed in his golden eyes, surprise perhaps, or unwilling respect. The elderly she-wolf cleared her throat nervously. "Your Majesty, perhaps if you explained—" "She doesn't trust explanations." Ryder's gaze never left Sonia's face. "She trusts her instincts, and right now her instincts are telling her I'm a threat." He was right, which only made Sonia more defensive. But her wolf stirred with a different opinion, pressing against her consciousness with insistent yearning. The animal recognized this male in a way that transcended logic, remembered him in ways Sonia's fractured human memories couldn't quite grasp. "Tell me about that night," Ryder said suddenly. 9 months ago. Where were you?" Sonia's breath caught. The memories swirled just out of reach. Golden eyes, gentle hands, pleasure that had made her forget her own name. It's fragmented. I remember running from something. Then I woke up alone." His expression darkened. Someone interfered. "My mother had enemies who didn't want her prophecies fulfilled. If they orchestrated our meeting and then erased your memories—" He stopped, jaw working. "You have no reason to trust me. I understand that. But I'm asking you to trust that I want to keep that pup safe as much as you do. Those eyes. They're my mother's legacy. Possibly the key to her final prophecy." "What prophecy?" Sonia demanded. "That's a conversation for a secure location." His tone brooked no argument, not in neutral territory where anyone could be listening. As if summoning his words to life, a commotion erupted outside. Shouts, the sound of multiple wolves moving through the narrow alleys. The elderly she-wolf paled. "They found you." Ryder moved with supernatural speed, positioning himself between Sonia and the door. Two massive males entered behind him. Guards, based on their military bearing, and the way they deferred to their alpha. "Sir, we have a situation. Multiple hostile rogues converging on this location. Someone tipped them off about the pup." "How many?" "At least a dozen. Armed." Ryder cursed under his breath, then turned to Sonia. "We can argue about this later. Right now, you have two choices. Come with me willingly, or I throw you over my shoulder and carry you. Either way, you're not staying here." Sonia's wolf made the decision for her, surging forward with approval. She hated it, hated feeling helpless, hated needing rescue, hated that this dominant alpha was right. But her daughter's safety trumped her pride. "Fine, but I'm not agreeing to anything beyond getting out of here." "Good enough." Ryder gestured to his guards. "Beta Drew will take point. Leo, cover our rear. Madame Iris." He nodded to the elderly she-wolf. "Thank you for sheltering them. Your kindness won't be forgotten." Then his hand was on Sonia's lower back, guiding her forward, and she hated how right the touch felt. Her wolf practically purred at the contact, radiating satisfaction that their mate was finally close again. The realization hit her like lightning. Mate. That's what the pull was, what her fragmented memories had been trying to tell her. This dominant, commanding, impossibly powerful alpha was her fated mate. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt inevitable. They moved through the neutral territory like ghosts, Ryder's guards forming a protective triangle around Sonia and the pup. The sounds of pursuit echoed behind them, rogues shouting coordinates, the crash of doors being kicked in, the distinctive smell of wolves on the hunt. "There's a vehicle waiting at the northern border," Beta Drew reported quietly. 2 miles. 2 miles might as well have been 20 for Sonia's exhausted body. She stumbled, and Ryder's arm immediately wrapped around her waist, supporting her weight without comment. The heat of his body seeped through her threadbare clothes, and more memories surfaced. The feeling of being held, cherished, consumed by his presence. "I can walk," she protested weakly. "No, you can't." There was no judgment in his tone, just matter-of-fact assessment. "Beta Drew, radio ahead. Have them bring the vehicle closer to the eastern access point. We're not making 2 miles. Sir, that will require entering pack territory without clearance." "Then get me clearance, now." The beta spoke rapidly into a small device while they kept moving. Sonia's daughter stirred in the sling, making small noises that threatened to become full cries. Panic fluttered in Sonia's chest. The sound would draw their pursuers like a beacon. Ryder must have sensed her fear because he moved his hand to gently cover the sling, his palm creating a sound barrier while his thumb brushed soothingly across the fabric. "Shh, little one. You're safe now." The pup quieted immediately, as if recognizing the voice of the male who'd helped create her. Sonia's throat tightened with emotion she couldn't name. In her most secret imaginings about the mysterious father of her child, she'd never pictured this, an alpha king who touched her daughter with heartbreaking gentleness. "Contact rear," Leo hissed. 4 hostiles, 50 yards. Ryder's entire demeanor shifted, the gentle male vanishing beneath the warrior alpha. "Get them to the vehicle, I'll handle this." "Sir." "That's an order, Beta." Before Sonia could protest, Drew scooped her into his arms and broke into a run, Leo matching pace beside them. Behind them, the sounds of confrontation erupted, snarls, the meaty impact of fist meeting flesh, Ryder's commanding roar that made every wolf in hearing distance instinctively submit. "He can handle 4 rogues," Drew assured her, reading her expression. The Alpha King didn't earn his reputation by losing fights. They burst through the tree line into pack territory, and Sonia felt the border magic tingle across her skin. A warning that she was trespassing on claimed land. A black SUV waited ahead, engine running, another guard at the wheel. Drew deposited Sonia in the back seat with surprising gentleness for such a massive male. Minutes stretched like hours before Ryder emerged from the forest, blood on his knuckles but otherwise unharmed. He slid into the back seat beside Sonia, filling the space with his presence, and the vehicle surged forward. Any injuries? Drew asked from the front. None that matter. Status? Clear road to the compound. ETA 45 minutes. Ryder nodded, then turned his attention to Sonia. In the close confines of the vehicle, she became hyper-aware of every detail. The gold flecks in his eyes, the strong line of his jaw, the way his scent wrapped around her like a physical caress. Pine and smoke and something uniquely him that made her wolf whine with longing. You're staring, he said quietly. You just fought off 4 wolves without even shifting. I've fought off more with less reason. His gaze dropped to the sling where her daughter slept. May I? Sonia should have refused. Every self-preservation instinct demanded she maintain distance from this male who'd already turned her world upside down. But something in his expression, a longing so naked it hurt to witness, made her carefully unwrap the sling. The pup blinked up at them both, those impossible black eyes reflecting the passing streetlights. Ryder's breath caught, and his hand trembled slightly as he traced one finger down the infant's soft cheek. What's her name? Sonia realized she hadn't named her daughter yet, too focused on survival to consider something so permanent. I haven't decided. My mother's name was Marianne. His voice roughened. She would have loved meeting her. The grief in those words made Sonia's chest ache. What happened to her? She was murdered, poisoned by enemies of our pack when I was 15. His jaw clenched. She spent her dying hours in my arms, making prophecies that I was too young and too devastated to properly understand. She spoke of a child with her eyes who would be born to my true mate. She made me promise to protect that child no matter the cost. Sonia absorbed this, her mind racing. You think our daughter is that child? I don't think... I know. His golden eyes met hers. My mother was never wrong about her visions, never. If she foresaw this, then everything that's happened, us meeting, your pregnancy, those eyes, it was meant to be. I don't believe in destiny, Sonia said flatly, even though her wolf howled disagreement. I believe in survival. Then we agree on something. A small smile tugged at his lips. Because I'll do whatever it takes to ensure both of you survive. Starting with getting you to my compound where you'll have food, medical care, and protection. The vehicle climbed into mountainous terrain, the road winding through dense forest. Sonia's exhaustion caught up with her, the adrenaline from their escape fading into bone-deep weariness. Her eyes drifted closed despite her best efforts to stay alert. She woke to the sensation of being carried, strong arms cradling her against a broad chest. Her daughter was secured safely in her sling, and Ryder's heartbeat thudded steadily beneath her ear. For a moment, she let herself enjoy it. Being held, being cared for, being safe for the first time in years. I can walk, she mumbled. You keep saying that. His voice rumbled through his chest. And you keep being wrong. She should have protested, but exhaustion dragged her back under before she could form words. Sonia woke in the softest bed she'd ever experienced, moonlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked a sprawling compound. For a panicked heartbeat, she couldn't remember where she was or... She's sleeping. Ryder's voice came from the shadows near the window. Fed her about an hour ago. Your milk came in while you were unconscious. The pack healer said that's normal, but you might be uncomfortable. Indeed, Sonia's breasts ached with fullness. She sat up slowly, taking in the luxurious room with its heavy wooden furniture and plush rugs. Where's my daughter? Right here. He gestured to an ornate bassinet beside the bed, where the pup slept peacefully, tiny fists curled beside her head. Relief crashed through Sonia, followed immediately by wariness. How long was I asleep? 14 hours. You were severely malnourished and exhausted. The healer said if you'd gone another week without proper food and rest, your milk would have dried up completely. Shame heated Sonia's cheeks, but she forced it down. She'd done the best she could with nothing. I need to feed her. I'll give you privacy. He moved toward the door. Wait. The word escaped before Sonia could stop it. Where am I exactly? My private wing. No one enters without my permission. His expression was unreadable. You're safe here, both of you. After he left, Sonia fed her daughter, marveling at how content the pup seemed despite the chaos of the past day. Those black eyes watched her with unnerving awareness, and Sonia wondered what exactly her child would become, a savior or destroyer according to the prophecy. The weight of that destiny felt crushing. A knock at the door made her tense. "It's just me," Ryder called. "And food, come in." He entered carrying a tray laden with soup, bread, cheese, and fruit, more food than Sonia had seen in months. Her stomach growled embarrassingly loud, and his lips twitched with amusement. "Eat. The healer said you need to regain at least 10 pounds. Sonia wanted to be offended, but the food was too tempting. She ate with focused intensity while Ryder watched from a respectful distance. When she finally came up for air, she found him staring at her with an expression she couldn't decipher. "What?" "Nothing. It's just—" He ran a hand through his dark hair. "I spent 9 months searching for you. I remembered fragments, your scent, the feel of your skin, the way you looked at me like I was the only thing in your world. But someone had done a thorough job of erasing the details. I mobilized my entire pack, had investigators search every territory, and found nothing. Now here you are, and I still don't understand what happened that night." Sonia's heart pounded. "You looked for me? Of course I did. You're my—" He stopped, jaw working. "I knew you were important. My wolf knew. But without a name or location, I had nothing to work with." "Tell me about that night," Sonia said quietly. "Everything you remember." He moved to sit in the chair beside her bed, careful to maintain proper distance. "I was at a gathering in the Northern Territories, political negotiations that required the Alpha King's presence. I stepped outside for air, and suddenly I caught the most incredible scent, like wildflowers in rain. My wolf went insane, demanding I find the source. I followed the scent to a cabin in the woods." His voice dropped, becoming intimate. "You were there, frightened, defensive, but underneath the fear I could smell arousal, recognition. Like you'd been waiting for me. We barely spoke. The mate bond hit us both like lightning, and we—" He cleared his throat. "The next morning, you were gone. The cabin was empty, and the scent trail vanished, as if you'd never existed." "I woke up alone," Sonia whispered. "I thought I'd dreamed you." "Someone orchestrated it," Ryder said grimly. "Someone who knew about my mother's prophecy and wanted to ensure it was fulfilled, but in secret. They brought us together, then erased enough of our memories to keep us apart. Why? What's the point of fulfilling a prophecy if we don't know about it? That's what I intend to find out." His golden eyes hardened with determination. "But first, I need to keep you both safe. And that means keeping you close until I can identify all the threats." Sonia should have bristled at the presumption. Instead, exhaustion and full stomach made her feel almost content. "I'm not staying in this room forever." "No. Tomorrow I'll introduce you to the pack." His expression grew guarded. "There will be resistance. A rogue she-wolf with the Alpha King's child. My political enemies will use it against me. My ex-lover will be problematic. And the council members who fear change will question why I'm sheltering you. Maybe I should leave then." Even as she said it, Sonia knew it was impossible. Where would she go? How would she survive? "You're not leaving." His voice held absolute certainty. You're under my protection now. Anyone who wants to harm you or our daughter will have to go through me." The possessiveness in his tone should have alarmed her. Her wolf, however, practically purred with satisfaction. Sonia finished her meal in silence, hyper-aware of Ryder's gaze tracking her every movement. The air between them felt charged, heavy with unspoken tension. "I should let you rest," he said finally, standing. Where will you sleep? I have rooms across the hall. He paused at the door. But I'll be close if you need anything. Just call. After he left, Sonia lay in the darkness, her daughter sleeping peacefully beside her, and tried to process everything. She'd gone from desperate rogue to mate of the Alpha King in less than 24 hours. Her carefully constructed walls were already crumbling around him, and the terrifying part was how right it felt. Her wolf had no such conflicts, content now that their mate was finally close. But Sonia had learned long ago that happiness was temporary, safety was an illusion, and trusting anyone was a mistake. Still, as she drifted toward sleep, she couldn't deny the small flutter of hope taking root in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. Morning brought harsh reality crashing back. Sonia woke to raised voices outside her door, a female voice, sharp with anger, and riders responding with cold authority. You can't keep her locked away like a dirty secret, the woman snarled. I'm protecting her, Clarissa. Protecting her? Or hiding the fact that you knocked up some rogue and now you're stuck with the consequences? Sonia's wolf snarled at the insult, but she forced herself to stay still and listen. My personal life is none of your concern, Ryder said flatly. It is when you're making a mockery of everything we built together. I was supposed to be your Luna, Ryder. We had an agreement. We had an arrangement of convenience that ended 6 months ago. You knew I would only accept a true mate as Luna, and you expect the pack to believe this rogue is your fated mate? How convenient that she shows up with a pup who happens to have your dead mother's eyes. Anyone with half a brain can see she's playing you. The accusation made Sonia's blood boil. She wrapped her daughter securely in the sling and yanked open the door. Both wolves turned to stare at her, and Sonia got her first look at Clarissa. The she-wolf was beautiful, tall, elegant, with honey-blonde hair and amber eyes that currently blazed with fury. She wore expensive clothes that probably cost more than everything Sonia owned. Everything about her screamed refinement and pack privilege. If I was playing him, Sonia said coldly, I would have shown up months ago instead of starving in neutral territory. I didn't even know who he was until yesterday. Clarissa's lip curled. How convenient. Memory loss. How original. That's enough, Ryder growled, his dominance flooding the hallway. Even Clarissa flinched, though she held her ground. Clarissa, you will address Sonia with respect, or you will leave my territory. Choose now. The she-wolf's eyes widened with shock, then narrowed with calculation. You can't mean that. Ryder, I've been in your pack since we were children, and you'll remain welcome here as long as you remember your place. His tone brooked no argument. Sonia is under my protection. Any insult to her is an insult to me. Any threat to her will be met with exile. Do I make myself clear? Clarissa's face flushed with humiliation and rage. Her gaze swept over Sonia with open contempt before she spun on her heel and stalked away. Ryder turned to Sonia, frustration evident in his expression. I apologize for that. Clarissa is difficult. Your ex-lover, Sonia said flatly. A political arrangement that never should have happened. He ran a hand through his hair. She expected to become Luna. When I ended things, she didn't take it well. Great. So I have a jealous ex plotting against me in addition to prophecies and assassination attempts. Sonia's laugh was bitter. What else should I know? Come to breakfast. I'll introduce you to the pack properly. His jaw set. They need to understand that you're here to stay. The dining hall was massive, easily accommodating the 100+ wolves already assembled when Sonia entered on Ryder's arm. Conversation died as every head turned to stare at her. She felt their assessment like physical touches, curiosity, suspicion, hostility, and in some cases, calculation. Ryder guided her to the high table where his senior pack members sat. Beta Drew offered her an encouraging nod. The others watched with varying degrees of reservation. Everyone, Ryder's voice carried through the hall with alpha command. This is Sonia and her daughter. They are under my personal protection, and they will be treated with the respect due to honored guests of this pack." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. One older male at the high table, gray-haired with shrewd eyes, leaned forward. "Your Majesty, perhaps you could clarify the nature of this protection?" "The pup is mine, Counselor Marcus." Ryder's tone was neutral, but Sonia felt tension coil through his body. "She bears my bloodline, and she will be raised accordingly." The revelation caused an uproar. Wolves talking over each other, shock and speculation flying. Marcus held up a hand for silence, his expression carefully neutral. "I see. And the mother? Is none of your concern." Ryder's hand settled possessively on Sonia's lower back. "Now, are there any other questions, or can we eat in peace?" No one dared ask more, but Sonia felt dozens of eyes tracking her throughout the meal. She kept her daughter's face hidden in the sling, not ready to reveal those distinctive black eyes to this crowd of strangers. Some looked openly hostile, others merely curious, but all of them judged. After breakfast, Ryder showed her around the compound, training grounds, medical facilities, the massive library that made Sonia's breath catch with longing. She'd loved reading before her pack was slaughtered, before survival became her only priority. "You can come here whenever you want," Ryder said, reading her expression. "All of this is available to you." They were crossing through a courtyard when a child's scream split the air. Sonia's wolf reacted instantly, even though it wasn't her pup crying. She spun toward the sound and froze. A young wolf, maybe 5 years old, stood near the fountain, pointing at her daughter with wide, frightened eyes. "Monster!" the child shrieked. "The baby has monster eyes!" The cloth covering the sling had slipped during their walk, exposing the pup's face. Those black eyes blinked in the sunlight, and several nearby wolves gasped, backing away. "Black eyes," someone whispered, "like the dead queen. The prophecy. This can't be happening." Panic spread through the crowd. Ryder moved to shield Sonia and the pup, his dominance rolling out in waves. "Enough! Return to your duties. Now!" But the damage was done. Sonia clutched her daughter closer, feeling the weight of every stare, every whispered word. These wolves saw her child as either a miracle or an abomination, and she couldn't tell which frightened her more. That night, after Ryder posted guards outside her room and left her alone with hollow assurances that everything would be fine, Sonia finally let herself break. She held her daughter close and wept silently, mourning the safety she'd hoped to find and the danger she'd brought to her child's doorstep instead. A soft knock interrupted her tears. "Sonia? May I come in?" Ryder entered without waiting for permission, his expression softening when he saw her tears. He crossed the room and, to her shock, pulled her into his arms, careful not to crush the pup between them. "I'm sorry," he murmured against her hair. "I should have prepared them better. I should have controlled the situation." "This was a mistake," Sonia whispered. "Coming here. Trusting you. I've just made things worse." "No." His arms tightened. "You made the only choice that could keep her alive. Out there, alone, you would have lasted another week at most. Here, she has a chance. We'll face whatever comes together." The certainty in his voice soothed something raw in Sonia's chest. She shouldn't lean on him, shouldn't let herself need anyone, but exhaustion and fear made her weak. She let herself sink into his embrace, just for a moment, and pretended everything would actually be okay. That night, Ryder stayed in her room, sleeping in the chair beside her bed like a guardian angel. Sonia drifted off feeling safer than she had in years, unaware of the dark forces already moving against them in the shadows. The silver poisoning burned through Ryder's veins like liquid fire, each heartbeat sending fresh waves of agony radiating from the wounds across his chest and shoulder. His healers worked frantically around him, their herbs and poultices doing little against the enchanted silver that had been designed specifically to kill an Alpha King. "Your Majesty, please," the head healer begged, her hands hovering over the worst gash. "You need to rest. The poison is spreading." No. Ryder's voice came out as a growl, his golden eyes blazing with feral intensity despite the pallor of his skin. I don't have time to rest. Every moment I waste here, she's suffering. Beta Drew stepped forward, his expression grave. Ryder, if you go after her in this condition, you'll die before you reach enemy territory. Let the poison flush from your system. We can mount a rescue tomorrow. Tomorrow she could be dead. Ryder forced himself upright, ignoring the way the room spun around him. Through the mate bond, he could feel Sonia's fear, her desperation, the echo of their pup's cries. The connection had strengthened since the attack, as if trauma had burned away whatever magical interference had kept them apart. Now it pulsed between them like a living thing, and every spike of her terror drove hooks deeper into his soul. He'd failed her, failed to see Marcus's betrayal, failed to protect her when it mattered most. The traitor had moved with calculated precision, waiting until Ryder was separated from Sonya, using silver weapons blessed by dark magic, creating chaos that allowed Alpha Kane's forces to breach the compound and take her. By the time Ryder had fought his way back to her rooms, all he'd found was blood, broken furniture, and the lingering scent of his enemies. How many warriors are ready to move? Ryder demanded, stumbling toward his weapons cabinet. 50 of our best, Drew replied. But Ryder, Kane has fortified his territory. He's expecting retaliation. This could be a trap designed to lure you in while you're weakened. I don't care. Ryder strapped on his blade harness with shaking hands. Mobilize everyone. Call in the alliances. The mountain pack, the coastal wolves, anyone who owes me blood debt or fears what happens if Kane succeeds. His beta's eyes widened. You're calling in the ancient packs? Ryder, that hasn't been done in a century. Then it's overdue. Ryder turned to face his most trusted warrior, and Drew took an involuntary step back from the raw fury in his alpha's gaze. Kane took my mate. He took my daughter. He thinks I'll negotiate, that I'll be reasonable, that I'll follow pack law and territorial protocol. He's wrong. I'm going to burn his entire territory to ash, and I'm going to make him watch everything he built crumble before I end him. The vow hung in the air, heavy with the weight of Alpha Command. Every wolf in the room felt it, the absolute certainty that their king would either succeed or die trying. Drew bowed his head in submission. I'll send the calls immediately, but you need to see something first. We found this in Marcus's quarters. He held out a leather journal, its pages worn with age. Ryder took it, scanning the cramped handwriting that filled each page. His mother's handwriting. His breath caught as he recognized the words, prophecies she'd recorded in the months before her death, visions that had been thought lost when her personal effects were burned by those who feared her gift. Marcus had this the whole time, Drew said quietly. He was there when she died. He must have taken it. Ryder's hands trembled as he turned the pages, his mother's elegant script blurring before his vision. Then his eyes landed on a passage that made his heart stop. The child with my eyes will be born to my son's true mate, a she-wolf of silver blood, hunted and alone. Their meeting must happen in darkness, their memories obscured, for enemies will try to prevent the joining. The pup will be the key to ending the endless wars. She will unite what has been divided, heal what has been broken. But first, the parents must be tested, torn apart and reunited, only through their combined strength. Alpha Command and Silver Wolf power will balance be restored. Below that, in shakier handwriting, as if written in great pain, his mother had added one final note. Marcus will betray. Kane will strike. But trust the bond. Trust the silver. My granddaughter will save them all, but only if they survive long enough to understand what she is. Rage and grief warred in Ryder's chest. His mother had known. She'd seen her own betrayal and murder, had foreseen every moment leading to this, and she'd let it happen anyway because the alternative was worse. The prophecy required Sonya and him to be tested, separated, forced to their absolute limits before they could fulfill whatever destiny awaited. She knew, he whispered, all of it. She let them kill her because it was the only way to set everything in motion. What do you want to do? Drew asked carefully. Ryder closed the journal and met his beta's eyes. Exactly what she prophesied. We go to war, we get them back, and then we end this cycle of violence once and for all. He swayed slightly, the silver poisoning reasserting itself, but forced his spine straight through sheer will. How long until the Allied Alphas arrive? The nearest are already en route. 6 hours, maybe less. Good. Prepare a war council. I want maps of Kane's territory, intelligence on his defenses, and every piece of information we have about his compound structure. Ryder's tactical mind pushed through the pain, years of military training taking over. And find me someone who knows about silver wolves. If Sonya's bloodline is awakening, I need to understand what that means. The next hours blurred together in a haze of planning and preparation. Alphas arrived bearing warriors and pledging their strength, some out of loyalty, others out of fear of what Ryder would become if they refused. The Mountain Pack. Alpha brought siege equipment. The coastal wolves offered their tracker teams. Even smaller packs sent their finest fighters, swelling Ryder's forces until he commanded an army the likes of which hadn't been seen in generations. Through it all, the mate bond pulsed with Sonya's emotions. Fear had given way to grim determination, then to something else. A strange, building energy that Ryder didn't recognize. His wolf paced restlessly, sensing that their mate was changing, evolving into something powerful. An ancient she-wolf arrived as night fell, her eyes milky with age, but her mind sharp. She'd been a historian before retiring to the neutral territories, and she carried books that smelled of dust and old magic. Silver wolves, she said without preamble, spreading a massive tome across the war table. Thought extinct for 3 centuries, wiped out during the Purge Wars when the packs united under the first Alpha King. They were feared because their power didn't come from dominance or pack hierarchy. It came from something older. Primal magic that predated the pack structures. Ryder leaned over the book, studying the illustrations of wolves with coats that gleamed like moonlight. What kind of power? Legends vary, but the consistent threads speak of amplification. A silver wolf bonded to a powerful alpha doesn't just complement his strength, she multiplies it. They become something greater than the sum of their parts. The historian's gnarled finger traced the ancient text. But the power only fully manifests under extreme duress, life or death situations, when every other option has been exhausted. She's in a dungeon, Ryder said flatly. Chained. Probably with enchanted restraints designed to suppress shifting. If what you're saying is true, then she's exactly where she needs to be for her bloodline to awaken. The old she-wolf's expression was grim. The question is whether she'll survive the awakening. Many didn't. The power burned them from the inside out. Ryder's hands clenched on the table edge, wood cracking under his grip. Through the bond, he felt a surge of emotion from Sonya. Pain, fury, and underneath it all, a building pressure like a storm about to break. We move now, he announced to the assembled alphas. Kane's compound is 40 miles northeast. We hit fast and hard, multiple entry points to divide their defense. Primary objective is recovering my mate and daughter. Secondary objective is taking Kane alive. I want answers before I kill him. Your Majesty, one of the Allied Alphas ventured carefully. You're still wounded. Perhaps you should coordinate from... I'm leading the assault. Ryder's tone brooked no argument. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave now. No one moved. As they prepared to depart, Beta Drew pulled Ryder aside. The silver poisoning is still active. You're running on pure will right now. If you fall, I won't fall. Not until she's safe. Ryder gripped his beta's shoulder. If something happens to me, you get them out. Promise me. Nothing's going to happen to you, Drew said firmly. We're bringing everyone home. The journey to Kane's territory passed in a blur of forced marches and tactical discussions. Ryder's wolf surged forward constantly, desperate to close the distance to their mate. The bond pulled taut as a bowstring, and through it, Ryder felt the exact moment something fundamental shifted in Sonia. Power exploded across their connection, raw, ancient, and absolutely unstoppable. His wolf howled in response, and Ryder nearly stumbled as the realization hit him. She'd awakened. His silver wolf mate had finally come into her full power, and the enemy compound that held her was about to learn what happened when you caged something wild. "Double time!" he roared to his warriors. "She's fighting back. We need to reach her now." The enchanted chains burned against Sonia's wrists like bands of frozen iron, suppressing her wolf, preventing her shift, leaving her helplessly human in the dank cell where Alpha Kane's guards had thrown her. Her daughter's cries echoed off the stone walls, hungry, frightened, needing her mother's comfort, and Sonia had never felt more powerless in her life. 3 days. 3 days of captivity, of watching guards leer through the bars, of hearing Kane's plans for her pup. He wanted to raise her daughter as his own weapon, to use the prophecy child's power to overthrow Ryder and establish himself as the true Alpha King. The black-eyed pup would be his tool, molded from infancy to serve his ambitions. Over Sonia's dead body. She'd fought when they took her, managing to wound 2 guards before silver weapons had driven her back. She'd fought during transport, nearly escaping twice before they'd beaten her into submission. She'd fought every moment since, testing the chains, searching for weakness, refusing to accept this fate. But the chains held, her wolf remained trapped, and her daughter cried. "Please," Sonia whispered to the darkness. "Please, I need to protect her. I need strength." As if in response, something stirred deep in her blood. Not her wolf. Something older. Something that had been sleeping for generations. Heat spread through her veins, building with each heartbeat until Sonia gasped with the intensity of it. The cell door clanged open, and Alpha Kane entered with Marcus at his side. The traitor looked nervous, his eyes darting between Sonia and his new Alpha. "Time's up, rogue," Kane said with false pleasantness. "Either you cooperate and tell me everything you know about the prophecy, or I take the pup now and leave you to rot." Sonia lifted her head, meeting his gaze with hatred burning in her eyes. "I'll die before I let you touch her. That can be arranged." Kane nodded to his guards. "Take the infant. Kill the mother." The guards moved forward, and Sonia's world narrowed to a single, crystalline point of fury. Not her daughter, not her pup. She'd survived too much, fought too hard, loved too fiercely to fail now. Protect. The word echoed through her mind in a voice that was hers and not hers. Ancient, powerful, undeniable. Deep in her blood, something answered the call. The chains shattered. Not broke, shattered, exploding outward in a spray of metal fragments and dissipating magic. Sonia's shift hit her like lightning. But this wasn't her normal wolf. Power roared through her, transforming her body into something magnificent and terrible. She emerged from the shift as a wolf larger than any she-wolf had a right to be, her coat gleaming silver like moonlight given physical form. Energy crackled around her, raising the fur along her spine, making the very air shimmer with power. The guards froze, terror written across their faces. Kane stumbled backward. "Impossible. Silver wolves are extinct." Sonia's answering snarl was primal and devastating. She lunged with supernatural speed, her jaws closing around the nearest guard's throat before he could even scream. The second guard raised his silver weapon, but Sonia was already moving, her enhanced strength allowing her to bat the blade aside and crush his windpipe with one massive paw. Marcus tried to run. Sonia caught him in 2 bounds, slamming him against the wall hard enough to crack stone. She held him there with one paw pressed to his chest, her black eyes boring into his terrified gaze. "Where is the exit?" The thought pushed through whatever mental connection existed between wolves, and Marcus's mind opened before her like a book. She saw the compound layout, the guard positions, the route to freedom. Sonia released him. He wasn't worth killing, and spun toward where her daughter lay crying in her carrier. The pup had been placed on a table against the far wall, safely away from the violence. Sonia shifted back to human form with a thought, the transformation smooth and effortless in a way it had never been before. She scooped up her daughter, checking frantically for injuries and finding none. The pup's black eyes stared up at her, and Sonia would have sworn she saw recognition in that infant gaze, pride even, that her mother had finally embraced her power. "I've got you," Sonia whispered, securing the carrier against her chest with shaking hands. "We're getting out of here." Kane had retreated to the doorway, but his shock was giving way to calculation. "You think you can fight your way through my entire compound? I have 50 warriors here." "Then they'll die." Sonia's voice came out cold and certain. Her wolf paced beneath her skin, no longer trapped or suppressed. The silver bloodline power hummed through every cell, making her feel invincible. "Get out of my way or join them." She felt Ryder before she saw him, the mate bond suddenly blazing to life with an intensity that stole her breath. He was close, getting closer, and their connection had evolved into something profound. She could feel his determination, his fury, his absolute refusal to stop until she was safe. Coming, she felt more than heard. "Hold on, I'm fighting my way to you," she sent back, surprised when the thought seemed to reach him. The bond between them had fully awakened, amplified by her transformation. And if the legends were true, if her power could enhance his the way the ancient text described, then together they would be unstoppable. Sonia shifted again, her silver wolf form manifesting with barely a thought. She burst from the cell with her daughter secured in a magical harness of pure energy, instinct guiding her to protect the pup even in wolf form. Guards rushed to intercept her, but she moved like quicksilver, too fast to track, too powerful to stop. She carved a path of destruction through Kane's compound, following the mate bond like a beacon. Ryder was close now, his presence a blazing star in her awareness. Every step brought them closer to reunion, and the anticipation building between them felt like destiny itself pulling them together. A wall exploded inward, and Ryder stood in the opening, golden eyes blazing with alpha power and absolute fury. Their gazes locked across the chaos, and the mate bond snapped into its final complete form with a force that sent shockwaves through every wolf present. Sonia shifted mid-stride, landing in human form just as Ryder reached her. His arms came around her and their daughter, and the moment they touched, power erupted between them, his alpha command weaving with her silver bloodline magic to create something that had never existed before. Together, they turned to face Alpha Kane and his assembled warriors, and Sonia felt the exact moment every wolf in the compound realized they'd already lost.